please join me in giving a warm welcome to Amanda Cohen.
Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Of course, Amanda. Thanks so much for coming. I know we're all really excited to have you. So let's just start about learning a little bit more about your background. How did you know you wanted to be a chef and eventually open up a restaurant and a cookbook?
I didn't know any of that. I still don't know if I know any of that. I'm not sure what I want to do when I grow up. You know, I really loved cooking as a kid. I'm from a really big family. I had 4 older siblings, and there's about a 5-year gap between my nearest sibling to me in age. And one day, all my siblings sort of ended up, you know, they were all in college, and my mom basically turned to me and my dad and was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm not cooking anymore. And we were like, okay. And my dad was like, yeah, I guess I'll just have lunch at the office. I don't know what he did. But I was like, oh, but I'm 13. Like, I've got to eat. She's like, yeah, you're going to have to figure it out. And I did. And I really liked to cook. So every night after school, I would go home and cook. And I just fell in love with that time in the kitchen and how much fun it was to play with food. And then I sort of forgot about it. I went to college. I came to New York. I went to NYU. I went through school. I traveled a bunch afterwards. I lived in Hong Kong for 2 years. I lived in LA for a year. And I was really floundering. And what I really wanted to do in my life was travel and not work. But I realized that, well, you know, nothing's free, so I had to have a skill. And I literally had no skills. And I was like, well, maybe if I go to cooking school, I can travel with this skill. And I like to cook enough. So, you know, I'll learn how to cook, and then I can go anywhere in the world and use this great skill of mine. So I came back to New York, and I went to cooking school. And I started cooking in the city, and I actually really never traveled again. I've been here ever since, and that was about maybe 20 years ago. And even at that time, as I was cooking, I didn't know this was my passion. It's what I wanted to do. I just liked it. I liked the culture in kitchens. I really liked sort of exploring textures and flavors with food. I liked the hours. I liked sort of just the whole crazy environment. And I kept going and going and going until one day I realized, oh, shit, this is what I do. I guess, you know, now, you know, 10 years into this, I can call myself a cook and a chef. And then I had a series of jobs, some of which I liked, some of which I hated. But I kind of hit a point in my career where I couldn't go any further. I had sort of stayed in the vegetarian world. And there weren't really any other vegetarian restaurants I could go cook at. I had sort of cooked at them all in the city. And I had this choice I had to make, which was either, you know, stay where I was in my career or start back at the beginning and, you know, be a line cook in a mainstream restaurant, cook a lot more meat, and, you know, rise through the ranks that way. Or I could, you know, say, screw it all and start my own restaurant. And I had actually kept working for other people, and then I kind of got fired from a lot of jobs. And I realized that, oh, maybe my only option is to work for myself, because, you know, obviously I don't like other bosses. And so that's when I opened the restaurant.
Well, that's an awesome story. How was opening your first restaurant? Could you walk us through what that really is like?
It's sort of like going to hell and never getting out of it. And you think you're at like the last circle, and then you discover there's actually an 8th circle of hell, and that's just like the first day of opening the restaurant. And it was really, really hard. You know, you think you know everything, and, you know, you're like, oh, you know, I'll figure this out as I go along, but I've worked in restaurants for long enough, so I know how this works. And as it turns out, you know nothing. And just, you know, I've opened a second restaurant since, and the second time I was like, oh, I know everything. I've got this under control. And I'm still like, fuck, how do I not know anything? How do I keep screwing this up over and over again? You know, they say that chefs have really big egos. I got to tell you though, opening a restaurant will just crush that over and over and over again. So the first one was really hard. It was small. It was 350 square feet. I had about maybe $300,000 was my budget, which, you know, 350 square feet sounds like a lot. It sounds like it should be the right amount of money. I had an awful contractor. He really, really screwed us over. He took all my money, basically, and didn't do a lick of work, and then we had to bring in a second contractor. And if you've ever built anything, you sort of know that that's the worst thing you can do, because then nobody has to take responsibility for anything. So when the plumbing goes wrong, the second contractor's like, oh yeah, sorry, that's not my problem. And you're like, yeah, but you're my contractor. And they're like, yeah, but the first contractor put it in. You're like, all right. And he's like, so it's going to cost, $500,000. And you're like, well, I need a bathroom, so okay. And the build out was supposed to take 3 months. It ended up taking a year. And it cost us, instead of cost $300,000, it cost us $700,000 for 350 square feet. And the place was still like crappy. People would walk in and be like, what's this little crap hole in the middle of the East Village? And I'd be like, but it's such an expensive crap hole. You can't say that. It took me like a year to get the floors level. And they'd be like, yeah, but that's still rolling downhill. Yeah, I know. Well, I tried. And then when we actually opened, because everybody had really sort of not done their job, we opened without gas. And so we spent the first 6 months without gas, cooking on easy bake appliances. So we had a teeny tiny little griddle, a teeny tiny little fryer. Our oven was like a toaster oven. It wasn't even one of those, I don't know if anybody watches like Real Housewives of New York, where Sonia wants to do her toaster oven. It wasn't even a fancy toaster oven like that. It was like really like an easy bake oven. And so we had to really struggle through that. Eventually we got gas, and we had sort of set the restaurant up to fail. And that's a really weird way to write up a budget, but I was like, I don't know if anybody's going to want to come and eat my food. We're going to do vegetarian, but we're really going to focus on vegetables. And who knows who's going to be out there and want to come eat. And we had set it up so that, if worse came to worse, I could be the only one in the restaurant running it. That seems really roomy if it's one person doing all the jobs in a 350 square foot restaurant. And what happened actually is we got really busy, and we were really lucky. So within the first couple of months, we started really filling up, and then filling up way too much. And we kept having to hire more staff and trying to get as many guests into the restaurant as possible. So in sort of a normal restaurant, you would want to do, if you have 18 seats, the most you'd really, really want to do is about 50. That's about 2.5 turns plus. And we started doing about 65 people a night, which meant we were doing 3.5 turns. And the restaurant just, collapsed. It couldn't withstand that many people. And I had too many staff. And you'd think with that number of people coming in that you would actually be making money and it would be a financial success, but it's not. I'm not sure the restaurant really ever made any money.
Wow. What a great story. We always talk
about
a
really sad story.
Yeah, we talk about being scrappy at Google, and using those easy bake appliances definitely applies over here. So when you think about the landscape of New York restaurants, or even just restaurants in general, a lot of the trends are moving towards this vegetable-focused cuisine. How do you think of new ideas? How do you keep them fresh? How do you know that's good?
I do a lot of drugs. I don't, it's a hard question, because people are always like, oh, how do you come up with new dishes? And honestly, I'm like, I don't know, I think of a vegetable, I think of a flavor, I think of a place on the menu where we need to do something, and then we go through a lot of testing. So whatever the idea is in my head at the beginning, it looks totally different when it goes out to a customer 3 months later after all the testing. We have a broccoli dish. We have these broccoli hot dogs. This is an easy example. And I knew I wanted to do something with broccoli, and we had this sort of smoked cauliflower dish on the menu. People loved it. It had been on for about 2 years, and I was like, it's time for that to go to the island of retired dishes. We need to get something new in. And broccoli was the right vegetable because it had this same sort of heft, so it was filling a position on the menu. And I really wanted to do something with barbecue broccoli. And we had sort of we'd pulled off all the stalks off the broccoli so that there was just this one single floret on its long stalk. And we were gonna grill that, and I don't know, it was gonna get slathered in a barbecue sauce, and I wanted to do 5 different barbecue sauces and make it really traditional, and have soft white bread but make it broccoli bread. And I kept testing this, and it was disgusting. It was the most disgusting thing we've ever made. And the broccoli bread was foul. It was like my staff was like, stop making us eat this. And I was like, no, but I think this one's a little bit better. And they're like, it's not. It's just not. But we had all these sort of components, and we had made the broccoli bun, or we had made the broccoli bread into a bun, and I had sort of had a temper tantrum, which I'd like to say I'm exaggerating, but really I had had a temper tantrum in the middle of the restaurant. We'd like been working on it for months. It was a Sunday, and I literally just took everything and threw it in the garbage. And maybe threw some things at the wall and broke some dishes. But I sort of, really this is how it happened. I looked in the garbage, and the stalk of broccoli sort of fell into the bun. And I was like, oh, well, that looks like a broccoli hot dog. So we went back to the drawing table, and we stopped making the broccoli buns. We made this soft white Japanese milk bread. Really, really soft, as close to sort of like a fake bun as you can possibly make. And, then we have our broccoli stock in the middle, and the broccoli sauerkraut that we put on top, and this mustard sauce, and dehydrated broccoli rabe chips with a little vinegar powder, and, the dish sort of rolled out from there. Now, that dish actually gave birth to another dish, because, so the problem with the broccoli hot dog is we have that one center stalk of broccoli, right? But you get, 8 cups of broccoli florets. So at the little place, we just ate a lot of broccoli for our family meal. But I mean, you have to imagine it'd be like every day if you guys went to the cafeteria and the only thing that was there was broccoli. We were bold. And we still couldn't get rid of it. Like, we had too much. And so I tried to offer it to all the chefs in the neighborhood. And people would take like a quart here or, a gallon there. And then we tried to actually give it away to the restaurants in the neighborhood and be like, oh, look, family meal. And they're like, yeah, we can't eat that much broccoli. And then I actually put up an ad on Craigslist just to give away the broccoli. And that's how we finally started really getting rid of it. There was one woman, she came and she would get she would take it all, and it would be like a lot, like gallons and gallons of it every week. We were like, oh, what is she doing with it? She took it. So, and we couldn't actually make a dish with the broccoli at Little Dirt Candy because we didn't have the space. And so everything that we did at the little one was really based on the space that we had. How many dishes was the amount of space we had in the fridge. How much alcohol we served was how much space we had in the drawers under the banquette where we stored it. But at the new place, we have the space. We have walk-ins and fridges. So we were like, okay, well, we've got to figure out something to do with the broccoli. And that's how we came up with probably our most popular dish at the moment, which is our Korean fried broccoli, which is a deep-fried broccoli dish. And it's addictive, and people come all over to have it. And then they have a second one, and they have a third one. I'm like, oh, my God, I'm going to have to pay for your hospital bills because you're going to die. And amazingly, we still have too much broccoli, and I'm still giving it away to a restaurant down the street, but not as much.
Broccoli ice cream, maybe? Very cool. So as a chef and restaurateur, you've also done some really amazing things in terms of eliminating tipping. So how did you come to that decision? What made you, what were your key drivers, and how did you react to some of the press and people's results?
Yeah, so I came to it for a couple different reasons. The first was about 3-4 years ago, I put out an ad for a new cook at Dirt Candy. And we actually got 0 responses. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. Because when I had first opened the first couple of years, every time I would put out an ad, I would get like 30, 40 applications. And I put out a second one, and a couple of people trickled in. And thankfully one, stuck around, and we hired them. But it didn't make any sense to me. I have a very niche cuisine. And there's enough vegetarian chefs out there, and we're a well-known enough restaurant that we should have been getting a lot more. There's only so many vegetarian restaurants, but a lot of vegetarian chefs. So that was sort of making me think there's something weird going on. And I started, asking all my chef friends, like, if they were noticing the same problems. And I'm like, oh, yeah, we're having the hardest time getting cooks. And what I sort of realized was, oh, yeah, of course, there's no cooks left in New York City. There's a lot of cooks in cooking schools for students training to be cooks. But they're all going to other cities. It's really expensive for them to live in New York. And they're traveling, an hour and a half to get to their job, where they're working 14 hours and then traveling back. And, the standard pay rate is about $10 for a prep cook or a line cook. And you move up, maybe $12, and sort of the top you hit is about $15 until you get, very specialized. But at $10, $12, it's really, really hard to live in New York. And so these students are going to other cities that now have great restaurants. There's great food scenes everywhere else, and a higher standard of living. It's easier. So I was like, well, I have to fix this, because I'm, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm about to open a new restaurant, and I'm going to need about 15 more cooks. What am I going to do? Well, obviously, the natural response is, well, I have to pay them more, and that's how I'll get, attract them to the restaurant. But the restaurant doesn't make that much money. So margins in restaurants are really, really small. Even like the best restaurants, maybe it's like 5%. Most restaurants sort of hover around 3%. I run a crappy one, so it's like 1%. There's just, the money just isn't there. And we need a lot of labor for the kind of food I do. So I was like, okay, well, I have to find more money. But I can't charge more for what I do, because consumers will only pay so much. And I was like, all right, I've got to find this money. And then I sort of started looking around, and I looked at my server, who I loved, but she was the only one who was allowed to take home tips. And because we were a small restaurant, it's 18 seats, and check average was about $100. And if you're doing 60 people a night, you're pulling in a lot of money. And 20% of that is she's walking out with about $600 a night, on top of the minimum wage that I'm paying her. So I was like, oh yeah, there's a huge discrepancy. My line cooks are walking out with 120, 150, and she's walking out with 600. Doesn't mean that I don't think that she wasn't working really hard, but somehow that doesn't make sense if we're all working towards the same goal in the restaurant. So I was like, well, maybe, I'll just have my cooks serve more. And my cooks helped. They were always helping serve. And my dishwasher was helping serve more. And I was helping serve. But none of us can touch the tips. So that is like this law that if you accept the tip credit, even without the tip credit, that the only person who can receive a tip is the server, because they touch the food basically 80% of the time once it's left the kitchen. And that's how it sort of gets divided. So then I was like, oh, well, I can't take her tip money away. That's illegal, and I don't want to go to jail. I wouldn't do well in jail. So I was like, okay, well, I have to figure this out. And then I started researching into tipping, and it's a really bad system. It's sexist, it's racist, and it's kind of a false premise, because everybody's like, oh yeah, well, if service is really bad, then I'm not going to, I'm going to cut my tip in half. But the truth is most people just tip what they tip. If you're a 20% tipper, you're a 20% tipper. Good tips, bad. Good service, bad service. If you do 15, you're 15 across the board. And then I started thinking, this is even weirder, that I'm basically just letting my customers be my human resources department for my server. Like, they're the ones who are sort of deciding what she gets paid, and how does this even make sense? Because if I have a bad night, it's the server that's going to get punished. And when service is really slow and the food is really bad, you blame the server. You don't necessarily blame the kitchen. And just all these sort of points came together in my head. I was like, all right, you know what? Let's get rid of tipping. Let's see if we can make this work. And it was a really good time, because minimum wage is actually going up for servers and for regular employees. So, I had to figure out how I was going to be able to pay them more. And yeah, so that's how we came to it. We started it. It was pretty amazing how much people really hated the idea that we were getting rid of tipping. I've been pretty vocal about a lot of things that I don't like in the industry, but nothing has made people crazier and hate me more than getting rid of tipping. It's like I'm stealing from my servers. The bartenders aren't going to make any money. How can I make this decision? This is one of the sort of strange things that came out, but I have never got as much anti-Semitic hate mail except from this. I'm like, I didn't even know this really actually existed, and I was like, oh my gosh, you people are mean, you're saying mean things about me. And they're like, oh, you're so cheap, you're so awful. And I was like, well, I'm not actually cheap. I'm actually trying to be really nice to my staff. And a lot of other restaurateurs were like, oh, it's never going to work. And then it so happened that it did work. We haven't gotten rid of it. Danny Meyer then also went to his hospitality included, which really helped us, because it sort of cemented the fact that, this is the way we think the restaurant industry is going to move to. My back of house is really happy. They get paid. And my front of house is pretty happy. We get the people who want to work for a salary, basically. We are guaranteeing them yes, they could maybe make $300 one night in another restaurant, but they're also never going to have a night where they make $100. So it really sort of evens out in the end. And then we did decide to profit share because I feel like for everybody, you need a little incentive. Raises are sort of far and few between in restaurants, especially for the front of house. And we wanted to make it more fun, and we wanted them to really understand the economics and have everybody feel like they were working for the restaurant. So we share 10% of our profits when we have it. We don't always actually have 10%, but we do our best, and we have lots of little incentives along the way.
That's awesome. So what's next? What's on the next horizon of changing the restaurant landscape?
I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't know what really is out there next. We have a really big problem in the city right now. Restaurants aren't exactly sustainable as they are. Minimum wage is going to go up, and that in the next couple of years, it's not going to help the tiny margins in restaurants. Rents are incredibly expensive. Just operating a business in the city. And it's still really hard to find labor. No matter how much I'm trying to pay my staff, they're just not here. And we've sort of had this, restaurants don't charge enough money for the food they serve. I know they seem really expensive. A lot of labor goes into it. And it's really hard to get people to understand how much it costs to eat in a restaurant. And we all think, oh, well, this plate of, those carrot sliders, if everybody came to the cafeteria, it's $12, and that's just a carrot on a bun. But the reality is it's way more work than just a carrot on a bun. And on top of that, I'm not only paying for that labor, but I'm also paying for the toilet paper in the bathroom. And you all want toilet paper when you come to a restaurant. I certainly know the people who steal it want it. So, and you also want electricity, and you want heat in the winter and air conditioning in the summer, and all of that is really what you're paying for when you go to a restaurant. And we don't charge enough. So we have to figure out a way where we can start, convincing the consumer that they have to pay a little bit more money. Because if not, restaurants are going to start to close. And what you'll end up with is a lot of those sort of quick service restaurants. Fine dining will disappear.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the next challenge is, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, it's educating the consumer a lot more.
Do you think that that's kind of the solution right now, just to educate the consumer? Do you have,
I mean, that's the only solution I know. I've tried my best. I'm trying so hard to pay my staff a fair wage. I want to be able to pay them more. In 2 years, everybody who walks into the restaurant starts off at $15 an hour, unless you're a server where you make a little bit more. And in a couple of years, that's actually just going to be minimum wage. And, so I now have to figure out a way where I can pay them $20 an hour. I can, get that up. I have to be able to charge more for the food. I have to find the money somewhere. That is the only solution I know.
Yeah, no, definitely. Would love to shift gears a little and talk about your cookbook. So what made you decide to, 1, write a cookbook, but 2, make it a comic graphic novel cookbook?
Well, I really didn't want to write a cookbook. And I had worked for a number of restaurants where sort of within the first year, the chefs had disappeared to write a cookbook. And I was like, that sucks. Because you're not there and nobody's taking care of the restaurant. And the restaurant really hadn't been around enough, I thought, to tell a story. But I'm also a snob and have a lot of opinions. What do I know? So we had gotten approached a couple of times by some editors and publishers that were like, oh, we really want you to write a cookbook. We really want you to write a cookbook. And I was like, no. And then sort of one day it sunk in. And I was like, well, maybe. And I was like, but I don't want to write a regular cookbook. I love cookbooks and I have a huge collection, but I'm not sure people actually cook from cookbooks so much anymore. There's the internet. I think most people look online for recipes, and that's where they really cook from. And cookbooks have become more like picture books and coffee table books. And I was like, that's not really representative of what we do at the restaurant. And if we're going to do a cookbook, we have to make something really fun. So I had, I was having some huge fight with my husband. And he was like, are you going to do this? I'm like, I don't want to do this. It's not going to be fun. And he's like, well, let's make it fun. I was like, I don't know how to make it fun. I was like, we'd have to do something really stupid. And he was like, yeah, do it in a comic book form. And then we both stopped dead. And we actually sort of were having this fight in the middle of the street. So traffic had stopped too. And we stopped and we were like, oh yeah, that's perfect. And it clicked right away because we knew that we could, if we found the right artist, we could really capture the spirit of the restaurant in this book. Little Dark Candy was crazy and was insane, and it was like a circus every single night. And I couldn't figure out how I could just, do that in pictures. But with sort of the movement that you get in a graphic novel, we were like, oh yeah, we could really make this happen, and we can make these characters come alive, and we could tell the story of the restaurant. And then we could also sort of rework how recipes were written. I think it's really easy to learn something visually, and not always when there's a lot of words next to it, especially with cooking. And we were like, oh yeah, we could draw out so much of this and make it seem so real that it would make a lot of sense to the person who's cooking from it. And these aren't easy recipes, so we really wanted to make them as easy as possible for the reader. So we went back to all the editors and publishers who had come to us, and we're like, oh, we're totally going to write a cookbook. We have this great idea. And they were like, no. Absolutely not. We were like, no, but it's going to be on. And they were like, no, way too much work. And we found Clarkson Potter, Random House. They took us on, and we worked with them to do this. And it was amazing. I'm not an artist whatsoever, but Ryan Dunlevy, who is the graphic artist, he did this amazing job of just really capturing the essence of the restaurant and making it look alive and fun, and we told the story through it, and everybody said that it wouldn't sell. And so our first run, I think, was about 5,000 copies, and within sort of a month, we had gone into the second run, and we're about 40,000 copies now, which for a cookbook without a big name attached to it is good.
Oh, it's awesome.
I still haven't made back any royalties, though, yet. I'm waiting for that.
Maybe after this. No, that's awesome. So we also know you were on Iron Chef, as mentioned before. How was that experience? What is the 411 inside scoop that they don't show you on Food Network?
Actually, the biggest surprise was how long it took. Not the battle. The battle is real. It's that's 60 minutes, and it is crazy. I don't remember most of it because it happened in such a blur. But the judging takes a really long time. So it's actually 4 hours. And you're by the end, you're I don't care who wins. I just want to go home. I've been here since 7 a.m. I want to go home. The whole experience was pretty crazy. I sort of everything in my life, I said no to it. And then they were like, are you sure? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to go and look like a loser, and I'm going to lose. And they're like, no, you're not. And I was like, yeah, I probably am. And I was like, I don't want to look dumb, and I don't want, we had to agree that it would definitely be a vegetarian battle. And, you get there, and, it's just a lot of bright lights and camera people, all around you. And the hardest thing is that the Iron Chef really knows where everything is. They've been there, they've done it. They're allowed in the kitchen, so, they stock their fridges the way they want to stock it. They know how the stoves work and the blenders work and just the ice cream machine. And as the competitor, you walk in and you're like, I don't know, where's the fridge? And they're like, that thing. And you're like, I thought that was the freezer. I thought that was the stove. None of it really makes sense. So in those 60 minutes when you're cooking, you're looking for things. Half the time it's where am I? And you're doing that as some camera guy is following you around. You're like, I feel crazy. And then the Iron Chef, they know where everything is, and so they're very calm. I did exactly what they told me I was going to do, which is they're like, oh, yeah, you're the chef, so you probably don't cook a lot. I was like, I'm in my kitchen every night. They're like, yeah, just be careful. You're probably going to cut yourself. I was like, I'm not going to cut myself. 2 seconds into it, I was like, my finger's hanging off. So then the whole, show I had Band-Aids that kept falling off. And I was like, it stopped bleeding. I can keep the Band-Aid off. And they're like, no, continuity. And I was like, So every 3 seconds I had a new Band-Aid on.
Stick to the plot.
And then for us, we're dumb. All of us. I love my people who work in my restaurant, but me included. But we didn't quite get what we were supposed to do. And, they were like, well, it's 5 courses. And we're like, yeah, it's 5 courses. And I don't know what was actually wrong with our brains. But we made enough food for a night in the dining room. But it's only the judges who sit there, and it's 3 people taking tiny little bites. They were all amuse size, just amuse bouche size, tiny little sizes. And we realized that's really what Chef Morimoto did. They make these tiny little portions. Meanwhile, we'd made a gallon of beurre blanc sauce. And they were like, what are you going to do with all this butter sauce? I'm like, I don't know.
Put it on Craigslist.
Put it on Craigslist. So we spent a lot of time doing stupid stuff like that. And I would like to say that we won, but we did not win. But we did a good showing. And it was fun. I would never do it again. I'm not a competitive person like that. But it was really, really fun to do. And I'm glad I have it on my resume.
That is awesome. What a cool story. So we'll actually be taking questions in the next few minutes. So if anyone has a question, start to think about it and head to the mics. Would love to just hear a little quick fire. What is the best thing you've ever eaten?
I hope I haven't eaten it yet.
Oh, what is your favorite vegetable and why? I know it's like all your kids.
Actually, this is an onion. It's actually my favorite vegetable. It's really, really versatile, and it's the backbone of almost every single dish. So we couldn't live without it in the kitchen. I mean, I don't usually eat them like an apple, although sometimes they're really sweet, but that is, it works so hard in the kitchen, and it gets such little love.
That's a great one. Any particular onion that you like better than others? Or?
No, I'm an onion lover.
What's your favorite thing to do to relax?
Actually, just read a book by myself, not talk to anybody.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. Well, any questions? Oh, looks like we do have one.
Hi, so what are the tax implications of the gratuity-only model? And I was also curious if you see any way of changing the laws to make it easier for restaurants to do what you're doing in that regard.
The tax implications for me personally as a business, there doesn't make a big difference. My insurance has gone up a lot because my payroll has gone up a lot. So that's the biggest difference, like cost to me. Tax implications are for the consumer because now you're getting taxed on your tip, right? So sales tax for the consumer has gone up. But it's also only gone up slightly because you used to pay sales tax on, let's say, the $100 portion of your bill, and now you're paying it on $120, but it's only that differential on the $20, right? The laws are there to make what I'm doing actually best for everybody. The laws surrounding tipping are so complicated, and like even without meaning to, people break them constantly. And it's like funny things you wouldn't think of. Bussers, this is sort of what most of the lawsuits, if you read the sort of, food gossip papers, and there's all these lawsuits against restaurants and tipping and who gets paid what. Well, sort of the easiest way to understand them is bussers who spend more than 20% of their time polishing are not entitled to the tips. I mean, that's part of their job, right? So then you have to be like, okay, Rasal, you've been polishing for an hour and you've got to get back on the floor. I've got to switch you off with somebody else. And even he's like, but I like doing the polishing. He's not entitled to the tips. So the law actually works against tipping. It works for exactly what I'm doing, which is paying everybody a fair wage and not having to sort of be a part of that tipping system. It would be nicer if, the way we do get hit a little is on our state taxes for employees like FUTA and SUTA. That'd be nice if those were reduced a little because we're getting hit with that. And if there was if you weren't part of the tip credit system, if there was some other credit system, but you were paying your employees a fair wage.
Thanks.
Very interesting. Cool.
Hi. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about vegetarianism, both kind of your personal philosophy towards it and then the role that you think it kind of plays in or should play in the food scene in general, especially as there are kind of more vegetarian or vegetable-focused restaurants opening.
Well, I'm not a vegetarian, so I was one for about maybe 15 years or so. And I gave it up because I was really tired of the vegetarian plate at restaurants, to be honest. I was like, I can't eat any more grilled portobellos and a side of rice, even at fancy restaurants. I was like, I'm not, if I'm going out to eat, I'm really not becoming a better chef. If I'm, this obviously other chefs just really care about the protein on the plate and not the vegetables. That was about 15 years ago. and times have changed. So, but for me, that's, I'm not a vegetarian anymore. And I really became a vegetarian because I don't like meat. It's just a personal taste preference. I've never really missed it. I do think the world's diet is changing. I think people want to eat more vegetables. I still think they really want to eat meat. And it's all about finding the balance. So I think restaurants like mine that are really vegetable focused are always going to be a smaller proportion of the restaurants out there. But the more people can offer vegetables, the more exciting it is. And we're starting to see some really exciting things happen, particularly in New York City, where people are now getting used to eating their vegetables at restaurants. Doesn't seem so awful.
Thank you.
What's your favorite dish on your menu right now?
What was the last? Oh, well, probably the carrot sliders, which is what we serve downstairs. And also we have this pepper dish, which is delicious, but mostly I like it because it's really, really annoying to my staff to have to make. They have to do it, and we take bell peppers and we fillet them. So we peel off one side of the skin and peel off the other, and then we punch a lot of holes out of it so they look like lifesavers. And it's a lot of work, and they're really angry at me. So that's I find that pleasurable.
Awesome. We'll take a question.
Yeah, so Dirt Candy is a really great name for a restaurant that's focused on vegetables. I wonder if you had any sort of story about how you came up with that name and its origins.
Well, again, it was a fight between my husband and I. So we were trying to figure out what to name the restaurant, and we wanted to stay away from a one-word restaurant name, really, because, and this is weird to say here, but because it's really hard to Google it. If you're called Fork and you just put in fork, everything shows up, from actual forks to a fork in the road to a million other restaurants named Fork. So that was out, and we were trying to really figure out, what the restaurant represented, what vegetables represented, and as things escalate, we were fighting about what they meant and what they were. And at one point, I was like, they're like candy from the earth, and my husband was like dirt candy. And we both stopped and we were like, oh yeah, dirt candy, that's good, that's really, really good. And then before we had opened, we thought we were going to be more of a vegetable and fruit restaurant. So we were like, well, if we call ourselves Dirt Candy, we can be Dirt Candy and Tree Meat. And then we both stopped and we were like, no tree meat. We cannot call a restaurant Tree Meat. Although I still really like it. And then we sort of went from there. We were like, yeah, Dirt Candy, it's perfect. And then I actually went to go buy Dirt Candy, the name. And it was taken. That's why I'm dirtcandynyc.com. And it actually pulled up my other favorite name, not necessarily for a restaurant, but for a project that one day I want to work on, which is nastybonbons.com, which would be the sister to Dirt Candy. So I should have bought it. Really like that, nasty bonbons. And then so we took Dirt Candy, and we knew it was going to be a difficult name for some people. And we did. I mean, still to this day, 8 years later, 2 restaurants, and countless reviews, we are still getting, well, that's the worst name for a restaurant. I'm like, I don't really care, because you remember it and you will never forget it. And so that's, we branded ourselves with this name.
How do you deal with, criticism and people constantly critiquing your food?
I cry a lot by myself in the bathroom. I try not to read the reviews, and then I'm totally lying because I read them, which everybody does. I now have other people who read them, and they sort of filter it out for me. And we, it's the truth is it's hard. It's really hard. We all work really hard. I'm in the restaurant every single day. My team is in the restaurant. We have staff meetings. We do our best to do customer service. We're constantly asking people how things are or what else we can do for them. And when you read something the next day where, it's really negative, and you're like, but I was right there, just why didn't you say something to me in person where I can fix it? I can't fix it if you've left, really. I can, offer to, refund your meal if I can get an email address or a phone number, but the truth is, I want to help you there. My goal, even though I am a chef and yes, I have an ego, is I'm a restaurateur, and I want to give you the best customer service possible, and I want to make sure you have the best experience. And such a small part of going to a restaurant is about the food. It's about the company and the service and everything else that makes it up. And that's my job, is to make you really, really happy. Hopefully I can make you love the food too. You might not like it, and that's okay. My food is definitely not for everybody, but the experience is, what I want you to have. And it's really, really hurtful, actually, when we read negative reviews, because we're like, well, we're right there. You could have said something. You thought this was too salty. I'm so sorry. We would have remade it. Or you didn't like this. Or, you thought you weren't getting paid enough attention. Whatever the thing is, I can only fix it at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's,
For sure. Definitely.
Hey, first of all, the carrot sliders were really good. Had one for lunch. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
They were super delicious. And next, I was thinking about all the challenges of having a restaurant in New York City that you talked about, how expensive it is and how hard it is to get staff. I'm wondering if you ever think about leaving New York and setting up shop somewhere else. And if you don't, why you stay in New York City. And if you do, where you'd go.
I stay because I have a 10-year lease, which I can't get out of. Also, I live here. This is my home. I've been here for over 20 years. I love the city, but it wasn't this hard beforehand, and it's become really hard and really expensive over the last couple of years. I probably will never open another restaurant in New York City. It's just financially, I don't know how people afford to do it, really. So if I were to go somewhere else, I would probably go home. I'd probably maybe, open another place in Toronto, which is where my entire family is. So it would be nice to spend some time with them. But I'm not sure I want to ever open another restaurant. It's a lot of work, and I'm getting old. I don't want to stand that long anymore. I've been standing for 15 hours a day for about 20 years. I'm tired. Restaurants are really, really hard work.
So it's been fascinating as someone who likes going to restaurants to hear about your experiences and your opinions. I was really curious about what you think about takeout and delivery, because that's like a big thing here. I wonder what you as a restaurateur think about that.
I mean, I think it's great because I eat it when I'm not working all the time. So thank goodness for Seamless. I don't know what I would do. It's almost like takeout and delivery. It's like they're two different foods. Like it's like they're not the same. We can't do delivery from Dirt Candy because our portions only look normal sized in the restaurant. I don't know if it's because of the plate size or what, but when we pack it up, when somebody's like, oh, I'll take that to go, we're always like, how did that fit in that tiny little container? But we spent 3 weeks making it. So it is really, really different. The sort of like the takeout model, though, and delivery and all those sort of like quick service restaurants are great. And they have found this way to make portions decent sized. They get you through fast enough, and it's sort of that satisfying comfort moment. But it's really, really different than going out to eat at a restaurant. And I do think because people, especially in New York, there is so much takeout and delivery, it changes your expectations at a restaurant. You forget that you're there for the experience and to be there with company and to have a bottle of wine or cocktails or whatever it is, and really sit and enjoy the moment versus getting something really fast and eating it at your desk or in front of the TV and being finished with it. And because there's so many takeout and delivery kind of places, it has, I do think, changed the way people eat in restaurants.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions before we wrap up? No, go for it. Oh, wait, what's your go-to Seamless order? I have to ask.
Probably, well, there's a lot of fights about it. What's hard is every time we find a restaurant we really like, I swear, like the next week it's gone. Like, what happened to you? We have a Thai place on our corner that's pretty good. And then I feel really bad saying it's on our corner. I'm like, how can I not go out and pick it up myself? It's like a block and a half away. But I'm still like, no, you got to come.
So I was wondering whether, as running a vegetarian restaurant, you feel that there's a pricing pressure where customers in New York are willing to pay more if there's a fancy piece of meat on the plate than they will if you put even more labor into making a really nice vegetable, but they say, oh, it's just a vegetable, I don't need to pay for it.
Are you in my brain? Yeah, I mean, that's actually, I think, one of the really big problems with the restaurant. We sort of have this price point we can't go above, which is like $22, $23. That's sort of the cutoff point. After that, we'll see in reviews like, oh, I'm not going to pay that much for this food. But I do think if I had that same dish at a steakhouse, I could probably charge $30 and nobody would sort of think twice about it. It is where you're eating and what's sort of getting served next to it. One of the really hard things with vegetables, and this is my fault, it's my restaurant, it's what I do, but they are really labor intensive. And like if you think like, oh, I put a whole piece of meat in the oven and I just cook it. Well, every single carrot has to be peeled and diced and cooked and done something else to it. And so that labor difference is huge. Like people will walk into my kitchen and be like, oh my God, there's so many of you here. I'm like, I know, I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, why am I embarrassed? So just that difference, yeah. I mean, if I truly believe if I put a piece of fish on my menu, I could raise all my menus by a couple of dollars. And everybody would be like, yeah, of course, she serves fish. Nobody would order it, but I would have it. Like, oh, it's that fish restaurant with lots of vegetables. You can charge $30 a plate.
What's your view on local produce versus organic produce? I feel like a lot of the times now, it's a lot of farm to table. Do you feel like that's a really important element to have in a restaurant or your restaurant? Or are you comfortable with, any type of vegetable?
I'm comfortable with any type of vegetable. If you can afford it and you want to buy organic, great. I can't. My prices would be ridiculously high. We do some organic stuff. A lot of our dairy is half of our dry goods, and certain produce items. But for the most part, we're not. Local, when it's in season, great. But we live in the Northeast, and even in I wrote a whole piece about tomatoes and how it's if you want a tomato, just go buy it. Don't feel guilty. Better to eat a tomato than something else in the middle of winter. All food comes off a truck in a box somewhere, anyways. We have a big enough problem in this country that people don't eat enough vegetables. New York might be sort of outside of that, but the USDA statistics for how much vegetables are eaten are really, really depressing in this country. And the two most popular vegetables are potato and tomato because it's French fries and ketchup. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure local is the issue. I'm just getting people to eat vegetables. So yeah, when we can, we buy local, but we can't always. And my goal is to get people to eat their vegetables. And once I can get them to do that, maybe I'll try a little harder with other things.
Cool. Awesome. We'll take one more question.
Yeah, I live in the Lower East Side. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about sort of your choice of location and kind of the restaurant scene in the Lower East Side and sort of how you feel it compares to other parts of the city and stuff like that.
I've only ever owned a restaurant in the East Village or the Lower East Side, totally different neighborhoods. They're actually very similar. The thing with the Lower East Side is it's probably one of the last areas where you can get a good deal on rent. And that's why I chose it. Rent is really expensive in New York right now. So for my small space, which was 350 square feet, my rent started off at $1,800, which was really fair and decent. And 8 years later, it was at $4,000.
Wow.
So those numbers just don't make any sense. Now, 10 blocks south, which is where I am in the Lower East Side, I have about 2,500 square feet, and my rent is $10,000. So that makes a lot more sense. And there you can still get really good rent deals. The restaurant scene, I think, in the Lower East Side is the most exciting. The restaurants were really nice. I loved being in the East Village. But, oh no, they were mean over there. Nobody wanted to take my broccoli. In the Lower East Side, everybody's taking it. No, they're really nice, and we have a really nice community of restaurants, and I think the food scene is exciting, and I think because the rents are cheaper, and you can sort of make a living, people are more willing to take chances. And so it's a lot of fun. There's just this really young, vibrant feeling down there. Other neighborhoods in the city, to me, seem really stagnant. It seems like it's the same restaurant opening over and again. And I think in the Lower East Side, you get to see a little bit more diversity.
Super cool. All right. Well, that is it. Everyone should go stop by Dirt Candy and make a reservation
do.
at 86 Allen Street. We also have some comic book cookbooks for sale. Googler discount for $5, so feel free to grab one after the talk. Amanda, thank you so much for coming. The food was amazing, and I know I can speak for myself and everyone else. This talk has been awesome. So thank you.
Thank you all.